it seems like the dust has settled a bit on the whole Kneecap situation. So I wanted to kind of summarize what's happening so far because I know the dust will unsettle inevitably, especially in the fall, because I think they have a sold out US tour that is likely to happen unless the US government steps in and gets in the way of that, which would be interesting. Um, Very free speech oriented, that country. Um, so yeah, we're gonna talk about what's happened so far. It's been a wild few months for our boys from Ireland. Um, so firstly, I think what made the news, what most people would have seen coming out of Coachella is that they had these big messages. Sorry, I'm just gonna full, yeah. They had these big messages saying like free Palestine, screw Israel, stuff like that, you know. And there was certainly some takes given, many good, many bad about the event. Um but by the time this happened, shit was already developing. So, when what happened before this was they played at the first weekend of Coachella, and I think the band gave a speech criticizing US, military support for Israel in terms of what they're doing in Gaza, and also, which that being cut out, it's like it's terrible if that's cut out of the broadcast. They're not allowed to talk about that, but it's predictable in a way. It's not surprising, at least. What was surprising was that apparently on that first weekend, um, they also they also did an anti-Margaret Thatcher chant, and that got cut out too. What? Like, so you're not allowed to chant against the UK prime minister from the 80s? That's too much for America? Okay. So that got cut out as well. So I guess they just weren't allowed to say anything at their first weekend at Coachella, but they said, "No, no, we got this. Back next Friday, Coachella, and it'll be sorted." And instead of giving the speech that time, they just they just had messages. They just had these big words written above the performance, and it caused a huge media kerfuffle, as it should. They looked very cool and very based and all that. Um, and just to make it clear, after the first weekend, I guess, after Coachella felt the need to cut out whatever speeches were given on the first weekend, at the second weekend, they moved where they were playing, and then they didn't broadcast it at all. But obviously, it's 2025. People have phones. Like, look at all these phones. This got out. This got everywhere. Most people saw this. You probably saw this, even if you weren't paying attention to the story back when this happened a few months ago. Um, and yeah, one of the biggest streamers in the world, Hassan Piker, was there and went on stage just to broadcast them because he knew that Coachella wasn't going to be broadcasting them. So overall, a little bit of a fail, a little bit of a Streisand effect where you try to bury something and it just makes it bigger. So I think this was April 19th or 18th, maybe. Yeah, 18th. The night of the 18th that happened, and then wouldn't you know it, um, about a month later, uh, one of them gets charged by the British government with a terror offense. Oh, great. Um, and this dates back apparently to something that happened on November 21st last year. which is, I think, legally like happening over 6 months later. It's supposed to be beyond the jurisdiction of the court. They seem a little bit desperate to get these guys with something, is what I'm saying. I guess like somebody in the crowd had thrown a Hezbollah flag, and then dude had like waved it. Hezbollah is the paramilitary slash political organization that controls parts of southern Lebanon, etc. And they're basically the resistance to Israel bombing and invading Lebanon. Um, and what's funny about this, I was reading this article. Officers from the Met's counterterrorism command, were made aware of on April 22nd of an online video from the event. So this happens, and literally just a few days later, the police in Britain are informed about terrorism support that happened last year about these guys, and then the charge comes up. I wonder if the charge that they were made aware of on April 22nd had anything to do with them doing this on April 18th. And it doesn't seem like this lawsuit's going to go very far. Like, what their attorney's arguing is it's beyond the jurisdiction of the court because it happened over 6 months ago, which should be true. And it's very sussy that, it like if any real harm was done from this, you would have thought that something would have come out sooner from it, right? But the timing of it makes it seem very much like it's related to this. It's basically a way to scare them into not talking, not talking about Palestine, not talking about whatever, like, oh, we're gonna lock you guys up as terrorists kind of thing. Also, I don't think the British government should be allowed to lock up Irish people, just like as a general rule. And going further off that, so uh, they had a big show lined up at Glastonbury this year too. And not good old, battle Prime Minister Kier Starmer, Sir Kier Starmer, sorry, show him the proper respects, said he does not think it's appropriate for this Irish trio to perform at Glastonbury because of these terror charges. So let's get this straight. They do this in the US, and the feed, bashing Margaret Thatcher as well is taken down. A few days later, the police are sent evidence to make them look like terrorists, and they're pressed charges. And then the US Prime Minister now has a reason to come out and say, I don't think it's appropriate for them to perform anymore. Meh, 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 meh. Again, if you represent the British government and there's like a contentious issue around the rights of Irish people, maybe sit this one out, I don't really care if the concert's supposed to be happening in Glastonbury. This would be like if the German government in like the 1970s was criticizing a Jewish band for their support of Black Panthers and said, "Oh, I don't think they should perform it." It's like, maybe sit this one out. Maybe you're not the person to like to be policing what these guys can and can't do, Kind of hilarious. Kind of like shows Kier Starmer. I mean, I don't know who doesn't think Kier Starmer is a corrupt, freakish goon at this point, but just in case you needed any more, he was probably just waiting for an excuse to say this, right? So Kier Starmer says, no, 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 they shouldn't perform. A bunch of artists come out. I just wanted to this I like the ones this article highlights. Eno is just like Brian Eno might be the most based like celebrity in entertainment, just period. Just he's shown over the years, he's always there, he's always on the right side. So anytime he comes out and like, wags his wrinkly finger at something, shit's real. Very, very cool guy. And I think that over the decades, all his activism has definitely like impacted his career or his fame in terms of like he's not like even necessarily a household name when he really should be. Um, and Tom Morello, that's funny because, as this article says, Morello is musical director of Black Sabbath's upcoming final gig. And meanwhile, Sharon Osbourne, aka the wife of the lead singer of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, has been like the one leading the charge to like get these Irish hoodlums in trouble kind of thing. So that's kind of a power move by Tom Morello, just to say like, nah, like I'm managing your husband's last concert and you're stupid for saying this, basically. So I like that. I like that a lot. These people don't fuck around. So a lot of people are like, hey, you guys can't just like, you can't get mad at them for fucking doing this. This is nothing, right? So anyway, I think the um concert's organizer, Glastonbury, ended up saying like, fuck you, basically. Like, if you don't like it, then don't come to the concert. Go somewhere else. This is my concert. I'm gonna do what I want. And there's lots of like I think Neil Young was one of the headlines at Glastonbury, which is hilarious. I mean, dude must be super old by now, but he's also very based, so that's pretty cool. Um, uh, I also wanted to shout out. So after this happened, um, basically they were dropped from their US visa sponsor. So the US music industry made it pretty clear like we don't like this. We're not going to allow this. Um Whereas interesting, I just want to give a little bit of a shout out. US punk rock legends Green Day were there as well in Coachella, and they edited their Jesus of Suburbia song to say running away from pain like the kids from Palestine, tales from another broken home. So, you know, even the US groups basically are kind of a little like seeming a little bit fed up with this. Everyone's throwing shade, dropping subliminals, or I don't even know what you call that a subliminal. That's pretty explicit. Um and anyway, so Glastonbury goes on as planned. Um But what's funny is the BBC, and I assume this had a little bit to do with Kier Starmer and all the other twats at the Labour Party headquarters. But, whereas like the conservatives are just like, lock them up, blah, 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 right? But conservatives losing their shit in the UK over this. Again, if you're British, maybe chill out on oppressing the rights of Irish people. Like maybe just a little bit. Maybe I don't think people see, like I don't think this is the funny thing to me. I don't think these British politicians like Keir Starmer realize like how illegitimate everyone thinks their views are on this and how like obviously biased. You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna take you seriously, bud. Um, it's some kind of weird narcissism to think that as a British person, like as a British conservative or corporate centrist, whatever politician, like people should listen to what you think about, the rights of Irish people to say things. So anyway, the concert happens as planned in Glastonbury. But the BBC decides we're just not going to air Kneecap's set at all. They're going to go there. We're gonna air the other stuff. We're just not going to air Kneecaps, right? We're just not going to. There's no way to get around it, basically, right? They know at this point if they air anything, there's going to be some shit for them to deal with. They don't want to deal with it. As much flack as the US rightly gets for what's happening in Gaza, don't forget that Israel started as a British project and that, Palestine was a British colony before that. Don't forget that. They're very complicit in this as well. They have a very entrenched, awful history with this stuff as well. So anyway, BBC says we're not going to show the Kneecap set, and but they do show Bob Vylan, who is on the same stage right before Kneecap, and this is. I'm just gonna show a few little excerpts because this is very nice.
So yeah, man. Obviously, we're seeing some fucked up things happening in the world, and you know, we're seeing the UK and the US be complicit in war crimes and genocide happening over there to the Palestinian people. And I know we're on the BBC, look, we're not going to say anything crazy, all right? Don't leave that for them lads, you know what I mean? But we have seen, unfortunately, we have seen a strange reaction to people that come out and voice support for Palestine, even though anybody with any kind of moral compass can surely tell that what is happening over there in Gaza is a tragedy. So look, we're not pacifist punks here over at Bob Vylan Enterprises. We're not pacifist punks. We are the violent punks, because sometimes you've got to get your message across with violence, because that is the only language that some people speak, unfortunately. This next song, we want to dedicate it to every single band that is using their platform to speak up for the Palestinian people and speak against the crimes that Israel, the UK, and the US, and much of the Western world are complicit in. So this is for all of you, like this is for Murder Capital, this is for Kneecap, this is for Amel and the Sniffers. Every single band out there using their platform to speak up for the Palestinian people. Because we must pray, hope, and wish to see a day where the Palestinian people are liberated and free.
Listen to all this anti-Semitism.
Israeli government. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free Palestine each and every single time this is pretty songs.
Again, very, very anti-Semitic, right? He tells another little story that's a good one. Let's see here.
For a record label. And it's funny because when I worked there, the boss of the record label, we would talk every so often, and he would speak very strongly about his support for Israel. Treading on that line, do you know what I mean? He was treading on that line. And then this letter, or this list of names came out recently of people trying to stop our mate's Kneecap from performing here today. And who do I see on that fucking list of names but that bald-headed cunt I used to fucking work for? So look, we've done it all right? From working in bars to working for fucking Zionists. And if we can do this, I promise you, lot, you can do absolutely anything that you put your mind to. I'm telling you this, all right? Don't give up on your dreams.
Nice. Okay, and all of that, remember this is on the BBC too, after they, you know, they didn't want any anti-Thatcher or any free Palestine talk going on. This is what happened after that.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF! 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 Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Amazing. Amazing. And, you know, maybe some people have some kind of contention about death to the IDF. Like, I don't know, if you replace that with like death to the SS, you know, I think people would understand. People say like, oh well, there's legal conscription in Israel. Everyone has to serve, so it's not fair to say death to the IDF because, you know, innocent people just are made to serve and whatever. It's like, I mean, Nazis had conscription too. Is that innocent? You know, the innocent thing to do would be to go to jail. Like, let Israel put you in jail if they're gonna try to conscript you. Otherwise, you might just get sent to jail later for war crimes anyway. And we've been through this before. Nuremberg was a thing after the Nazis did their genocide, and there the precedent was clearly established that just following orders is not an excuse. It doesn't excuse anyone from the consequences of, you know, having committed crimes. So I think death to the IDF is entirely appropriate and accurate, and I think it's hilarious that like these guys who are just saying Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people, free Palestine, fuck Israel, blah 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 blah. I think it's hilarious that when the BBC tries to like not show any of their shit, you end up getting a chant of death to the IDF instead. And of course, like, you know, going back to good old Kier here, saying that it's not appropriate for Kneecap to perform at Glastonbury. And why isn't it appropriate? Again, because they are charged with terror because they waved a flag on stage or something. And it's like, so to Kier, so this is Kier's morals, because he cares very deeply about equality and such things. It's not appropriate to wave a flag on stage. However, it is appropriate to send Israel weapons while they're doing a genocide. And the real danger here, the real danger to equality and to the public good is these Irish hoodlums waving a flag on stage. It is not the military actions that our government's helping to perpetrate. It's these Irish punks. They're the issue. Like, it's such a stupid distraction. I don't think anyone would believe it, and obviously it's backfired a little bit. I also wanted to show one more thing from a fucking legend. This is the son of Seun Kuti, who is personally one of my favorite musicians. And he gives a really good, like, I think this was the most on point speech out of all of them. So I just wanted to like play it as well and give us a chance to hear him popping off.
I have an advice for young people in Europe. I know you want to free Palestine, you want to free Congo, you want to free Sudan, you want to free Iran. There's a new one every week. Free Europe. Free Europe from right-wing extremism. Free Europe from fascism. Free Europe from racism. Free Europe from imperialism. When you do this job, as soon as you do this job, Gaza will be free, Congo will be free, Sudan will be free, Iran, forget about us, don't worry about it. Free Europe.
You know, It's absolutely true. And like even like you could say, oh, well, a country like Saudi Arabia, they have their own reasons that are kind of independent of European, racism and fascism. Uh, Saudi Arabia has its own reasons to do a genocide in Yemen and stuff like that. But without the support, like without the US sending Saudi Arabia weapons, without Western countries buying all of its oil and all this stuff, like it wouldn't have ground, it wouldn't be able to do these things. Um, and I think, uh, besides that, there is just the simple, like, strategic argument, I think, that's being made here quite well of like, if you're a citizen of a Western country, and you don't like what's happening to Gaza, but you're like, you don't like what's happened in Congo, you don't like what's happening to Niger, like whatever. Um, and you want to do something about it, but you feel like there's not much you can do. Like you don't have proximity to those events. You can't like you don't have any control over the extremist, insane, genocidal Israeli government. Well, fair enough. You don't have direct control over them, but, or like influence over them, but you have more direct influence over your own governments and what your own governments are doing. And like, the complicity of the UK, the US, France, Canada, like Germany, like this is what makes it possible for Israel to do what it's doing, right? So, like, fascism in Israel would be impossible if fascism was eradicated from the rest of the West, right? So, and so, like, just from like a practical standpoint, right? Even if you feel, the harm that Israel is doing is more urgent and immediate and extreme than the harm that, let's say, the US government is doing to its citizens, right? Um, Even if that's like your primary goal and what you're really, trying to, you really want to help those people overseas kind of thing. Um, the best way you can do that is honestly like get your own government in check, fight fascism at home. Like, think about it this way: as much as you feel powerless to stop the Israeli government from doing what it's doing, the awful things it's doing, imagine being a Palestinian and thinking like, I want to stop what the US the government is doing, right? Like as powerless as you feel to stop Israel, imagine being a Palestinian, how powerless you'd feel to stop the US from shipping all of the bombs and weapons that are being used to Israel. Obviously it's like it's orders of magnitude different, right? You might not have a lot of power over Israel, but you certainly have a million times the influence over your own government than the Palestinian victims of your government do. So I think this is like not just like principally the right thing, but like strategically this is like I think how it happens. And I think that's also why um just like people like Zoran, people like AOC, just their presence, just the fact that there's people, prominent US politicians who are pretty openly anti-fascist and like organizing kind of democratic resistance, that's a threat to fascism everywhere, basically. Which is why you don't like people like Zoran can't just exist and like be anti-fascist without like the Israel lobby and all those insane Zionist types being like, "Hey, you're pretty scary to Jews and stuff," like just trying to make everything about Israel, everything about Jewish people. It's because the causes are connected, or like specifically Zoran's cause, actual democratization in America, actual like like a more equitable distribution of wealth and power in America, that would like make fascism, that would make genocide in many places impossible, right? Obviously, a lot of this is the distraction. Like you seem insane if you're complaining about dudes waving a flag at a concert last November. Nobody talked about it until April. Nobody talked about it until May because the police weren't tipped off until 2 days after this shit happened. Then the police were tipped off about it, right? If like this is your concern, then you're like you're cooked. Like your brain, you don't know what's going on. This is not hard. This is not hurting anyone. Nobody even knew about this. This is just whatever, right? Obviously it's the genocide. Obviously it's the militarization of societies and the broad crackdown of on free expression. I mean, this is happening in the context of like US citizens being like denaturalized and like residents being deported over like writing articles that are just sympathetic to Palestine, right? Not saying death to the IDF or anything, just like saying free Palestine, whatever. Just acknowledging that Palestine even exists is like enough of a cause to get you like deported or detained in the US. And meanwhile, Kier Starmer is gonna say like, "Oh, it's not appropriate to wave a flag." Blah, 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 blah. Like, come on. These people don't understand the world we're living in. So, anyway, it's gonna be interesting when Kneecap has a sold out tour in the US this fall, and if um if that's going to be allowed to happen or not, because I don't know, they're kind of losing their shit. But at the same time, it's become pretty clear that their attempts to like clamp down and to like shadow ban or to censor, they're trying everything to try to censor Kneecap, and everything seems to be backfiring. Like, Kier Starmer probably thinks like, oh, I can put my weight in and I can help stop this. And it's like, I think Kier Starmer putting his weight in here is like gonna contribute to the end of Kier Starmer. He thinks he's using his power to help Israel stop Kneecap from speaking out. But I think what's actually happening here is Kier Starmer is going to end up boosting Kneecap, boosting the Palestinian cause, and like eroding his own power and his own support, basically. I don't know what Kier Starmer's support is at, but I assume it must be getting pretty low. Um, at this point, 80% of the Democrat voters in the states and like what, 70% of independents or something are sympathetic towards Palestine. And it's like, and I'm not saying the other 20-30% is supportive to Israel. It's much less than that because there's always like the, I don't know, or undecided or whatever category, right? Yeah, this was funny. And again, I don't know. I just wanted to end with something actionable, and I felt like Mr. Kuti here had the right was taking the right angle with it. But like if you're gonna focus your efforts, don't forget that where you have the most impact is by holding your own government to account and by fighting fascism in your own countries. Because again, fascism in Israel, genocide in Israel, is not possible without fascism broadly having a foothold in the West, right? So we keep that in mind. Anyway, that's that segment, I guess.